Welcome back to OpenLine, talking about two of the more controversial issues before the legislature this year. The transgender bathroom bill, that's what we're focused on for the first part of the program. Second part of the program, we're going to talk about gun laws in Tennessee. Representative Mike Stewart has been part of both of those issues in the legislature. We also have with us Peter Kurland with Local 492, who has concerns about this transgender bathroom bill and its impact economically. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Brian. Hello, Brian.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. What's on your mind?
Hey, listen, the guy on the right with the suspenders, what's Local 492? And I found his comment, it's mostly people with the older generation that have a problem with this, and older this and older that. You seem to emphasize older people. I've heard this before in political agenda talk, divisiveness, ageism. And he doesn't look like a spring chicken himself. I'm just wondering why, if he thinks most older people are against this law, and he's probably about my age, he's a little bit older, why is he for it?
Okay.
I just find his whole attitude very odd.
And I think he's not for the law. Okay, first of all, he asked, what is 492? Why don't we explain that?
It's a local of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. We're the union that represents workers behind the scenes in the motion picture, television, and stage business. My particular local represents grips and electrics and art department people and props people who work in the motion picture and television industry, specifically in Tennessee on the Nashville TV series, on the two other TV series shooting in the state, and on the motion pictures that are shot here.
And you are here because you're opposed to the transgender bathroom bill.
I'm opposed to the bill because of the economic impact it will have on my industry, which has been a very good industry for Tennessee. It employs thousands of people in high-paying jobs with good benefits year-round. So I oppose it principally on those grounds. I don't think it was my comments on the age of the people that it affects, but I don't think that's really I don't really think that's the issue anyway.
And it was Representative Stewart who said that, and you were saying younger people aren't as focused. This bill affects students. I guess you can clarify your statement there. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I just it's not based on science, just based on talking to people. But when I talk to my constituents, my sense is that younger people tend to be very unworried about sexual preference. They're just not really focused on it. Their generation is growing up at a time when people being gay, people being transgender is just not a big issue. And so I don't think that it's people who are actually in school, who are high schoolers, who are in college, that are really crying out for this bill. I certainly haven't met a young constituent who's come up to me and said, yeah, I'm really focused on transgender kids going to this bathroom or that. I just don't think that's what 20-year-olds think about these days.
Representative Susan Lynn, right? Representative Susan Lynn has been on the show, and she is a sponsor of the bill. And when asked why does she support it, she said because people have a right to privacy, and she brings that up. And then she says lawsuits. There's the concern that without some guidance from the state, there could be lawsuits. What do you think about that? That there could be lawsuits on the part of a child who is in a situation that makes them uncomfortable. Has there been a problem at this point that this bill addresses?
Well, some people, some opponents in committees have pointed out that it seems like it's a solution looking for a problem. I mean, on the ground, there just don't seem to be that many complaints. I suppose you can always have a lawsuit about just about anything, but I don't think there really have been a lot of such lawsuits. And again, I think that stems from the fact that, kids just aren't really that worried about this. Again, I'm generalizing. I'm sure there may be some that are. You know how we should deal with that? We should let school administrators work this out on their own. I bet they can sort these problems out. We're too quick, I think, to create laws and get down in people's business. A good principal can figure out how to take care of this, take care of a transgender child, and to take care of all the other children's concerns. I don't think the Tennessee legislature needs to get down and get involved in this.
Let's go to Olivia. Hello, Olivia.
I can't hear you now.
Can you hear me now, Olivia?
Yes, I can.
Great.
I'm not really understanding all about this bill. I understand that transgender people, the male dresses up like the female, and the female dresses up like the male. So what is this about? Changing the bathrooms to accommodate them?
You would have to go to the bathroom that is on your birth certificate.
Correct. And that's the way it should be. Whether you're a man dressed in a woman's attire, go to the male's bathroom. If you're a woman dressed up in a man's attire, go to the female's.
So it's very simple for you. Now, what's the argument? This is so complicated, but what's the argument? You hear that, and there are probably people out there that agree.
I think a lot of people think that, but I think down on the ground where these kids are, it's not just that a transgender child dresses in other clothes. I mean, that's a person who identifies entirely with the other sex. And up to now, there comes a point when those children go to the bathroom that they think reflects their sex. And I don't really think it's been as big a deal in these schools as some think it would be. I don't think it's as big a change as some perceive it. I think the kids are able to work this out by themselves, and it's not that big a deal.
And it was interesting, in the House Education, I believe it was subcommittee, there was some very emotional testimony from some students, and even a doctor, who said this is determined by, it's not something they choose to do, it's something that they are born into, I think is essentially what his testimony was. And there was very emotional testimony, and the committee decided to kill the bill, essentially, send it off to summer study. Then they did something very unusual where they brought it back. How unusual is that?
It is unusual, and I should say, to the caller, I do think this whole area is something that 25 years ago people weren't talking about. So people raise questions that we should talk about it openly and think very carefully about it. What I would suggest is go back and look at the testimony of these kids in committee, because it really gives you a different idea of what this is all about. I think of a lot of these issues, it really helps to see what these kids are talking about. And I think it's been an eye-opening experience for me, personally.
All right, let's go to Otis. Hello, Otis.
Yeah, what these kids are talking about.
You might need to turn down your TV. I'll come back to you. Okay, let's go to Barry. But turn down your TV, Otis. Let's go to Barry. Hello, Barry.
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
The thing is, I want y'all to know I am not a party member of the Democrat Party or the Republican Party or any other. But I'm going to tell you right now, right's right, wrong's wrong, and guess what? These here children have a right to take and be treated appropriately. I'm talking about the ones that are taken and being in an unsafe environment. This bill should be passed. It should go through, because the bottom line is everybody wants to talk about discrimination against these here kids, etc. Excuse me. Those kids that are going to school that are showing themselves to be a female or male and doing what's right, they have rights also, just like these other people have. And you always want to take and accuse discrimination. Excuse me. Those kids that's in school are being discriminated against too, that are not transgender, homosexual, or anything too. And furthermore is this: some of them are my grandchildren now. And I would take and say another thing with you, sir. You always have people on there that are correspondent with what seems like the news media wants to go in a manner of. I'd have liked to have been on there with those men today and talking to, is the money worth taking, and all these little kids taking something maybe happening to them, and it has been happening to them. And it seems like you don't care about the little kids. It's about the money that I'm hearing.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for your comment. We've had the sponsor of this bill on twice, and we also had a statement here from somebody who supports it. All right, we have a lot of calls, and I appreciate your opinion. I know you are not alone in your opinion. Let's go to Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hey,
Good evening. Mr. Stewart, I've watched you on the PBS channel in the legislature, and I have a great deal of respect for you. I think that you're an intelligent man, and you have a lot of integrity. But with that being said, I think, in my opinion, what all of this is about is California outlawed the conversion of gays. And if anybody can look back at the faith-based initiatives that George Bush put out, George W. Bush, he put out part of faith-based initiatives where you could convert a homosexual. You had 2 shots to do it in 30 days. And the counselor at the faith-based counselor could get $45,000 federal money, taxpayers' money, twice. That's $90,000 you could make in a month from attempting to convert a homosexual. They outlaw that in California. One legislature in Congress that walked out here a couple of years ago that's under investigation. Her husband made a lot of money off of doing that, and they're both pretty devout Christians. So I think that's what this is about, period.
Wow.
There's no money in it anymore, so now let's just raise hell. Thank you.
All right, Lucy. Okay, all right, let's try Otis again, is that right? Should we go back to Otis? On 5. Okay, Otis, go right ahead.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Otis.
All right. How y'all doing?
Great.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Otis, turn down your TV. And all right, so we heard both sides. Okay, there's passionate. You understand that there's a lot of passion here. How do we get past that? I mean, what do you think, either one of you, about just the passion we're hearing from people here?
Well, I didn't want to talk about the substance of this, but I'll just say this. I'm not aware that this has been an issue that's been going on. I'm not aware of anybody having been hurt or children complaining. You know, my kids grew up here and went to school, and nobody said anything about this at their schools. You know, when I was going to public school here, you know, my school had, you know, one bathroom, one stall, and one person was in it, and it wasn't really an issue. So I'm not sure that it's really the kind of big safety issue. If it was, I don't think I would be here to defend that it will be hard on industry, because it isn't about the money trumps the children's safety. I don't think there is a safety issue that's been demonstrated, but in return for which, by trying to fix this problem, it does appear that it could cost the state a lot of business from my industry and others.
And what I find it is an issue that I hadn't heard a lot about, and then all of a sudden this year, legislatures across the country are dealing with it. So we see a similar bill in North Carolina, we see bills in North Dakota, South Dakota. Why do you think that is happening? Is there some sort of national push, in your opinion, to get these kind of bills passed in state legislatures?
I think there clearly is a national push. I mean, that's why we're seeing it crop up all over the place. That's why I don't really, this is not a bill that I think people in Tennessee say, gosh, we need to have this bill. This is coming down from on high from groups that are national. But, okay, I mean, people have a right to bring bills before the legislature. I think one thing about this that I think about is, look, let's face it, everybody knows that a transgender child in a high school, that's a kid who is probably at times, you know, facing embarrassing situations. Some of them get picked on. I mean, these are people that are going down, in many cases, maybe a rough road. So when we're looking at balancing this legislation, I think we need to really make sure we look after the person who's probably potentially struggling, potentially at risk. And I think, sure, other children, we need to take care of all the kids in public school. We don't just need to, we're not here just to push a particular group's agenda. But let's face it, when we're having a kid who's a transgender, that's probably a kid that we need to take extra time and protect. We definitely don't need to be passing laws that exclude that person or to bring down the power of the state against them. That is not a problem. And sure, the other children, any good principal can figure out ways. Like you said, you had one stall, it was no big deal, everybody figured this out. We just don't need the Tennessee legislature taking care of this. Let the principals take care of this, let people take care of it on the ground. But these kids, we don't need to be passing laws to further isolate our citizens. That's just that's not the right approach. And I really don't think it goes. A lot of these groups, well, I think some people have made religious arguments. I think, you look at the Sermon on the Mount, I think if you're coming from a Christian perspective, taking care of somebody who's vulnerable, I mean, that's a central tenet. That's a central focus. And so I think let's get back to our basic principles, even setting aside the money issues, which are also important. I think that's why there's so much emotion bound up in this particular argument.
There's a lot of emotion and a lot of calls. We're actually going to shift topics to another very emotional topic, guns. And you had some very interesting legislation on that I want to talk about. But before we go, since you're going to leave us after this segment here, bottom line for you, I just want you to be able to make your point here.
Well, my point is fairly straightforward, which is that Tennessee has been a very receptive state to the entertainment industry, starting with the music industry right now, film and television. Good jobs, a lot of people in the industry, and I don't like to see anything unnecessarily threaten that. I would like to see Tennessee expand motion picture and television production and see more people have good employment in it. And anything that can be done to further that, I would like to see happen. And I'm very concerned that anything that appears to be discriminatory, particularly when it's seemingly unnecessary, can damage that growing industry as well as the significant tourism industry and other industries here that are run by people who are concerned about this kind of legislation.
Peter Kurland, thank you for being here with Local 492 and giving us your opinion on this. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about guns, so that'll be equally as interesting. We'll take a break, be back right after this.
Thank you.